Thank you for attending the press conference. About 45 minutes ago, I returned from the meeting with the President that has been widely reported. The meeting that I was invited to consult on the appointment of a Commissioner of Police and 4 Deputy Commissioners of Police. Earlier this week, I got a call from the President's Secretary asking whether I'd be available to meet today at 11, and I indicated yes. I subsequently, I think it was on Tuesday, received a correspondence from the President. And in that correspondence, he cited Article 211(1) of the Constitution, which states the Commissioner of Police and every Deputy Commissioner of Police shall be appointed by the President, acting after meaningful consultation with the Leader of the Opposition and the Chairman of the Police Service Commission, after the Chairperson has consulted with other members of the Commission. In that letter, he also cited Article 211(6), which states that there may be more than one office of Deputy Commissioner of Police. The President then indicated that he intends to consult, pursuant to those articles of the Constitution, on the appointment of the Commissioner of Police and 4 Deputy Commissioners of Police. And he listed 5 names. And then as his nominees. So the list of nominees were Assistant Commissioner L. Alves, Assistant Commissioner M. Graham, Assistant Commissioner L. James, Assistant Commissioner N. Hoppy, and Assistant Commissioner P. Williams. Having received this correspondence on Tuesday, and looking at it, I realized that pursuant to the Constitution and the constitutional definition of meaningful consultation, the President had not met that definition. And I caused a letter to be sent to his office pointing this out to him, that he needed to indicate who is going to fill what post, as is required by the constitutional definition of meaningful consultation. So he had not done that for the Commissioner of Police. I did not know which of his nominees would have been appointed Commissioner of Police, or he wanted to consult with me on as for the Commissioner of Police post. So the President early this morning sent me a letter, and he indicated that Assistant Commissioner Leslie James, Albert James, will be the Commissioner of Police. He wanted him to be the Commissioner of Police. So having received that, although I was hoping to get it in advance so I could have solicited a more informed view about the candidate or his nominee. Nevertheless, I attended the meeting because I wanted to ensure that I fulfilled my constitutional role, and this matter has been pending for a very long time. And I think it's important that we get people to fill substantive posts. So I attended the meeting, and the President indicated his preference. And so I asked several questions. I pointed this out to him about the lateness of the correspondence and how it impeded my ability to have some form of consultation with others about the potential or the nominees. And he undertook that in future that there would be a long enough lead time to avoid the occurrence of, or the reoccurrence of such a situation, because I said it does impede, or this impeded on my constitutional authority to consider the matter carefully and talk to others. I indicated to him that I did not have a positive or an adverse view to the names. I've heard from various people at various points in time about the individuals, and I do know many of them because they've been in the force for quite a long time. And I did not intend to raise rumors or conversations that people shared with me that can't be substantiated by evidence at a consultation, because it would do injustice to the individuals concerned. Because if I just go there and raise rumors that I've heard about this or that person. And so in my view, in this case, I said to the president I did not have an adverse position to any of the nominees, because I simply have not had a chance to go through the process that he would have gone through. So I sought to find out from him about the process. I indicated once again to him that we had gone through a particular process which resulted in the selection of Winston Felix as the Commissioner of Police. And I said to the president, I've heard about these interviews and geography tests, and then compounding that, you said that you wanted to find an unbribable candidate. So I'd like to find out how all of those issues came together in the assessment of the candidates and the process that you went through, and how did you manage to secure these attributes in the nominees. So he said to me that the test was a basic test, that it was designed for grade 6. He asked the Ministry of Education to design a test for grade 6, and that he will share with me some of the basic things, that it was more just of an assessment of general knowledge, and that the process was that he, along with the Attorney General and the Minister of Public Security, they conducted the interviews. So that was the process. They conducted interviews with the candidates, and this assessment was pitched at a level not to disqualify people, but just to find out about their general knowledge. And so it was not a geography test. So he said that to me. Secondly, I asked about the role of Paul Slow and whether the COI would have tainted some of the nominees, the commission of inquiry that was headed by Paul Slow. And he assured me that Paul Slow recused himself at the Police Service Commission when some of the nominees were discussed there. And so, because I had a view on that, the purpose of that COI, I believed it was a hatchet job for some of the candidates. And so I had to seek assurance from the president that was not a factor. The COI was not a factor in the selection process, and that Mr. Slow himself was not a factor. And then I raised the third issue about Ramnarine, not that I have any brief for Ramnarine, that he was acting commissioner of police and there was an expectation that he was selected. And the president indicated to me there are specific reasons why he was not selected. He did not share what those reasons were. So that was the first part of the discussion as it relates to the appointment of the Commissioner of Police and the 4 deputy commissioners. I also raised with the President several other issues. I indicated to him that he had pointed out to us when we met the last time that he had identified 3 areas that he wanted us to have discussions on. And that I was fearful that the media would think, or the country would think, that somehow we are delinquent in responding to him. Because he had indicated to me at that time, at the meeting, that he would return to this matter in the post-Congress period. So he said to me, yes, he has asked some of the ministers, etc., to take their vacation now. And I reminded him of the promise that he made, that he will write me formally about the talks, and he will indicate formally the 3 areas that he had identified when we last met. And I said once I received that letter that he had committed himself to earlier, I will respond to the letter, because I've had some initial discussions at the level of the executive, and there are some issues that we may wish to put on the agenda for discussion too, along with the 3 issues that he has identified. Before I forget it, let me just go back to the police issue, because we spent some time discussing the context within which the reforms of the police will take place. And I said to the President, we're still in the dark about all of these reforms. We've heard about decentralization of the police force, regionalization of its structure. The President said he wants a pyramidal structure in the police force, and I said that may be good, but we would like to see if there is an overarching vision that is driving all of these reforms. And you had promised to give us a copy of the Combs report, and we have not received that as yet. So he undertook to get that to us by tomorrow, the Combs report, because it's absolutely necessary that we see where the reforms, if any, where they're going, and if there is a master plan for these reforms. So there were other issues raised. I raised the teacher strike with the President, and I said, Mr. President, it's absolutely necessary that you get involved in this to resolve the matter. That it has been quite a while that the teachers have been waiting to have this matter resolved. I think it's in the interest of Guyana that we secure these multi-year contracts, so you don't have to go through the hassle of negotiation on an annual basis. And I believe that there is money to fund a lot of what the teachers have been asking for without going through, without increasing overall expenditure in the budget. Now, I want to return to an example that I gave the president. I will deal with the teachers issue a bit more extensively. But I said to him that you have a corrupt contract, and I said the word corrupt contract, where the government of Guyana has now, the government of Guyana now pays an individual $14 million a month, VAT inclusive, for a house in Sussex Street that's closed up most of the time. It's called a bond. And so that's $170 million a year. The teachers asked for an increase in housing allowance, not housing allowance, clothing allowance, from $8,000 to $25,000. That $170 million that we give, the taxpayers of this country, through this corrupt deal, gives to an individual every year. If you divide that by 13,000 teachers, you will come up to $13,000 per month more, $13,000 per teacher. If you add that to the $8,000 that they're getting, it will go to $21,000. They were asking for $25,000. We can give them $21,000. The task force only recommended $16,000. But that, if you terminate that contract alone, that could fund the clothing allowance, the annual clothing allowance to the teachers for all 13,000 of them, and get to 21,000. I said, you just have to terminate one corrupt contract. And I'll go through some other things later, how they can find the money to pay the teachers. So I urge the president to address this matter urgently. And I said to him, you have been stressing the importance of education. And so now it is time to address the teachers' concerns urgently. I raised the question of the sugar workers and their struggle to get their severance, the remainder of their severance. And I said to the president, this is money that is due to them. They worked for this. This is not a handout that they should be struggling for or requesting they're begging for. This is mandated by law. So I asked, when will they receive the severance? He said to me, they've taken a position but to pay the severance, but I could not get a time at the time when they will pay the severance, in what time period. He said they took a decision. So I used the occasion to talk about the confusion with Gaisuko, and he pointed out that they had this confusion, but now there's one. Gaisuko falls under the Ministry of Agriculture and not the SPU or NISL. And I said to him, but Mr. President, you have by order transferred all the assets of the closed estates to NISL from Gaisuko, and you have also transferred 100% of the shares of Gaisuko to NISL. Further, NISL has borrowed $17 million that they already have in an account, and they're out in the market to borrow another $13, $14 million in the market. So they have money there that they're borrowing on behalf of Gaisuko, and you were saying they have no responsibility. It's the Ministry of Agriculture. And they pointed out that they gave $2 billion to Gaisuko, that is NISL, but what are they doing with the $15 billion? What are they going to spend it on? What are their plans? And if they're not responsible for Gaisuko, what are they doing with the money? So we would like to see the severance paid early, and that's what to the workers who are laid off. And by the way, I've seen several news outfits saying 4,300 workers. It's 6,000, nearly 7,000 workers. It's 7,000 workers. They're not adding Wales and the others. They were just adding those laid off in the second round of termination. So I see that figure, 4,300 workers. It's 7,000 workers who have been laid off. So I just wanted to point that out. I then pointed out to the president about the oil and gas sector. I raised the issue again that I raised at the last press conference about the confusion that the government itself has said that no future contract will be negotiated on the basis of the same terms as ExxonMobil, but they're yet to tell us or to define to the country what those terms will be. And we are very concerned that whilst they made that declarative statement, but they are proceeding to give the exact same terms that ExxonMobil got through side approaches. And you recall our position in the parliament when that a proposal was made to parliament to give Mid-Atlantic, I think it was Mid-Atlantic, some similar concessions. And we said, why not defer this until we have defined the framework for future negotiations? So I asked the president directly are we going to be tendering future blocks? Because we believe that the resources, he agrees with me that we now have more people who want blocks than we have available, and the reverse of what we had in the past. And so I said to him, the only way we can avoid people, middlemen, creaming the benefits is if we go to tender auction, that the money will accrue directly to our people, the taxpayers, the country. So I raised that issue with him. I raised the issue that is affecting so many sectors. I pointed out to him how hard life has become in the hinterland because of the state of the roads. It's the worst ever in our history. I've spoken to people who have been working the hinterland for a long, long time. They said to me, in living memory, we can't remember the roads being in this shape. I said to him, the cost of living has gone up. The suppliers from Georgetown, even recognized suppliers like banks, DIH, etc., they can't get their product into the interior. We can't bring out a lot of their logs from the hinterland. And I have no doubt that the statements, the irate statements from the miners, had a lot to do with that too, apart from how they're treated and the taxes. That the state of the road, because it affects their cost of input if they have to get fuel and other things in the interior. So it's taking a toll on the economy. And I asked whether the president will be addressing this matter, because these affect the economy and significant part of our constituencies. So these were just some of the issues that we dealt with, that I raised at the press conference, because I'm very concerned about what is happening in these sectors, in the mining sector, with the teachers, with the sugar workers, the general cost of living increase, etc. I want to deal with a few issues. With the teachers issue, I promised to come back to this, the teachers' strike. Now, a lot has been said about the teachers and whether they are being unfair or they are justified in the struggle for higher wages. And I know a lot of parents are very, very worried out there about whether the kids would have the teachers in school to take care of them when school reopens. I know of the great deal of worry there. But I want people to understand, if you look at the justice of their struggle, to understand how long they have been at this. Somehow, people think that they just made this demand yesterday. And now they're acting unreasonably. The multi-year agreement that we had with the teachers ended in December of 2015. Before that agreement ended, the teachers crafted a new document and they submitted it to the government to negotiate the new multi-year agreement. That was in November of 2015. They struggled to get meetings. They managed to meet with the permanent secretary twice. I've been looking at the timeline, and then that permanent secretary was moved. And then they managed to meet with another permanent secretary, and then with Rupert Roopnaraine, who promised to take some issue to the cabinet. They never heard back from the cabinet. They met with Minister Henry. She promised to move the issue forward. Nothing happened. It broke down in, that is through 2017. And in 2018, the president caused a task force to be appointed. The task force submitted, that is January 2018, a report in March. It made certain recommendations. This is a joint task force. If you commit yourself to a task force, a joint task force, you have to respect its findings. Once you make that commitment. And I've looked through the task force report, and the report did not recommend all that the teachers wanted. In fact, I thought the report is very, very reasonable in terms of affordability, the task force report. And the teachers themselves have said, I've seen from the union, 40% was our starting point. That we are prepared to accept, I've even heard figures like just a small double-digit figure for 1 year and single-digit for the remaining period of the agreement. And so that's on wages and salaries alone. So this is not, they have not been unreasonable in their negotiations. Everybody goes into a negotiation with a figure. So the government is just making heavy mileage about this 40% figure and not saying that the teachers themselves have said that they are prepared to accept a much, much lower figure. And this is like turning people against them because people are saying 40% is too high. So I wanted to tell you, I just give you one example where a significant part of the demand of the teachers can be met from termination of one corrupt contract. I just gave you the figures. But this morning, I went through the estimates again because I've been speaking about this for a while. And if you go to the estimates, go to table 9 of the estimates. Abstract of current expenditure by charts of accounts. And you can go through, you will see, get the figure for 2014 and get the figure for 2018. So get 2 copies, a 2015 copy of the estimates and a 2018 one. And do a few comparisons for yourself. So let me choose about 6 or 7 items. Let me choose 7 items. 6291, that's the code. National and other events. That is celebration of national and other events. In 2014, we spent 477 million. In 2018, 911 million is budgeted to celebrate national and other events. Dietary, which is food, in 2014 was $3.6 billion. Now it's $5.2 billion. An increase of 1.585 billion. That's why I said $1.6 billion increase in dietary. On national events, we had a $434 million increase to celebrate national events in the last 3 years from 2014. This one is 1.6 billion dietary has increased by. Dietary, that's the head. 6294, other category. This is an other category on 629, which is other operating expenses. So you have other operating expenses as the head, and then a subhead which says others, ill-defined. We were spending 1.8 billion, now we've gone to 2.6 billion, 836 million increase. If you add those only on 629, those 3, that's a $2.8 billion increase alone there. So let's move on. 6261, local travel and subsistence. This is for traveling locally and for per diem to travel locally. It used to be 1.42 billion, 1.4 billion. I don't want to call out all the figures. Now it's $2.1 billion. It has grown by $732 million per annum, that we're using for local travel and subsistence, paying people per diem. Gone up by $732 million. Vehicle spares, 6264, vehicle spares and service. It was 853 million. It has gone to 1.34 billion. A $490 million increase in vehicle spares and to service vehicles in government now. That's the increase. Then 6265, other transport, travel and postage, used to be 800. This is other types of transport and travel. 874 million in 2014 has gone to 1.3 billion now. 469 million increase. So, and then rental of buildings. You know all of these, the government is renting all over the place now at lucrative prices. 6241, rental of buildings, 795 million in 2014 has gone to 1.39 billion dollars. 544 million per year increase. Now when I add those there, that's another $2.2 billion increase. Let me add the first 2.8 and this 2.2 billion. In these 7 heads alone, we have increased expenditure of $5.1 billion. We could easily cut these and find money to pay the teachers' wages and restore the the 1 month allowance to our discipline forces, pay all the debunching for the teachers, for the housing allowance, increase our outline allowance, all of these things. Just here from 7 heads that don't affect real development. That's how much. And we talk about not finding resources. And worst of it all, that this government has the gall, Henry and the others, to go out and talk about teachers being greedy. I've heard the comments about teachers being greedy and they want duty-free and all of that, when they, without even working a single day, they took a 50% increase for themselves, and their salaries have gone close to $1 million a month. We bought new vehicles. They don't have to get, they have duty-free as ministers, but they get state vehicles that they're driving, new ones, tons of new ones. I didn't even include those that we had to buy. And then go and lecture teachers. It is this sort of thing that bothers me. So I don't say I agree with, all the demands of the teachers. I'm not saying that. But at least treat them respectfully. They've waited several years for you to even talk to them. What if we value our teachers so much, why do they have to wait 3 years for you to just talk to them about this? And you just give them the royal runaround. This is the big problem. And then they say, we don't have money to deal with these issues. Now, another issue I'd like to talk a bit about is the whole question of the gerrymandering of the boundaries. Now, I've seen Minister Bulkan put out a long document. He did not address our concerns. He took what every letter writer said, and he sought to justify the change in the boundaries and the creation of new local government authorities. But what intrigued me most, because what intrigued me most is Vincent Alexander, who is a GCOM commissioner. He now speaks on behalf of the commission. So he says in an article on Kaichur News, August 25th, 2018, he articulated that the change in the LAs, or the changes, are the prerogative of the minister. And nobody disputes that. The legislation is clear. He then goes on to say it is not of GCOM. I agree with him. GCOM has to respond by reconstituting the constituencies. So he's right about that. That's where we have the problem. And I'll come to that. GCOM handles the establishment of the constituencies. The minister handles the establishment of local authority areas. The extension of local authority areas and the number of constituencies that there will be is not determined by GCOM. What GCOM does is, once the minister determines the numbers, then GCOM has to go and come up with the actual constituencies. Perfectly correct. Perfectly correct. The minister sets out the new local government areas to be created. He says, I want X number of constituencies in this particular local government area, and GCOM has to do this. So we've been saying, we recognize GCOM has to do it, but GCOM has to do it in an impartial manner. And we've been saying, in the impartial manner, this dictates that GCOM consults with people on the ground, as is required by our constitution, and also with the political players. It cannot be done unilaterally by GCOM. So he talks about the PPP, and this is what he says. Having to consult with them, we have to equally consult the others. So you have to find, in a sense, a neutral arbitrator. And that is the role that GCOM will have to play, Alexander stated. So that is what we are saying. Consult with everyone. But he makes this precisely. And where we have the problems, he then goes on to talk about a lot of inaccuracies. For example, Alexander noted that with PR, the PPP would have secured 50% of the seats with 40% of the votes. You can't, with proportional representation, get 40% of the votes and get 50% of the seats. PR means you get this exact percentage of the votes, that proportion of the votes, you get the same proportion of the seats. That's in the national elections. Now, you know that we won even by GCOM numbers outside of the areas where we had a walkover, where they didn't contest. The GCOM numbers show we had 23,000 more votes than APNU in the past local government elections. So it couldn't be that we got 40% of the votes and got 50% of the seats. And anyway, it's wrong, totally wrong. But I'm just setting this up all as a background. So GCOM, as correctly pointed out by Alexander, has to define the constituency boundaries. So let me give you a few cases how GCOM has done this in a partisan manner. And this is where we have major problems. So in region 2, Evergreen Paradise, they've merged 8 and 9, the constituencies 8 and 9, and the merged constituencies will now have 652 voters. They say where it's bigger population, you merge those. Okay? So the merged constituency. PPP won both of those areas. Okay? So in 5 and 6, APNU won the 2. But they did not merge those 2 constituencies, although the total votes there is 503. So they merged 2 and made it larger when they argued that it should be smaller. And they merged the 2 that the PPP won and not the 2 that APNU won. That is in region 2. In region 3, this is a tied area, Margaret Tooth, Merizorgan. It's tied 8-8. So they fused, again, they merged constituencies 5 and 6 with 1,074 voters, the merged constituencies. So that is now reduced to 1 seat. The 2 constituencies that we won 2 seats there the last time, we will 1 now. And APNU in 1 and 2, they could have merged 1 and 2, which has only 829 voters. And APNU won 1 and we won 2. That would have been a fair system because both parties won each of the 2 constituencies to merge, equal numbers. But they merged the 2, 5 and 6. So we'll get a reduction now. And this is in a tied local government area. So we can, if the same voting pattern takes place, we'll lose this one. Then in region 5, again, a tied area, Woodland Farms. They merged 1 and 2, which both PPP won, 990 votes. They could have merged 6 and 7, which APNU won, with 851 votes. But they chose the 2. So now, in that tied area too, APNU will get it. This is what GCOM did. After Alexander said they have to be fair. This is the fairness we're getting from GCOM. And so it is not just the minister who is trying to gerrymander the boundaries, but GCOM itself, and they should have invited all the parties and explained this and let the parties make proposal. We thought our commissioners tried to raise this issue at the level of the commission, they shut it down. And so, the way I see this going, this could face a legal challenge. This could face a legal challenge. I'm yet to determine whether we will go down that route. But this is a patently unfair practice of GCOM, and it violates the Constitution too. They should consult with all the parties involved. So I just wanted to give that example. Now, tomorrow we're going to have a special event, national holiday. The president will host a press conference. And so I hope people, I'm just joking before they actually think it's a national holiday and they said they heard me say that. But now that you will have, the media will have the president at their disposal, I hope they will seek clarity from the president on a few issues. Number one, the parking meter project. Does he support it or not? A simple answer. Will he support the implementation of the parking meter project or not? We in the PPP, we are opposed to it. Two, when does he plan to give out the new Amerindian land titles? So we left a significant amount of money, 10.7 million US dollars in the Amerindian land titling project to continue the work at giving out land titles. They have not given out a single one, except in those that were already prepared in the past. Not a single one. When does he plan to do that? Three, could the president say specifically whether they will auction future blocks? Two, could he define the terms of reference and the portfolio of the Department of Energy versus that of the new Petroleum Commission in accordance with the legislation that is before the Parliament? What does he think about the current model of the Sovereign Wealth Fund that I think the whole country believes that will harm our interests and has too much government control over all of its elements, from the Natural Resources Fund, which is managed by the Central Bank, to the Macroeconomic Committee, to the Investment Committee. All would have ministerial dominance. Does the president support this model? And if so, why? On the oil and gas, again, what about future contracts? Have any new contracts been given out in the past year to any other company? Has any contracts been given? Of course, the teachers issue. The cash transfers. What is the president's position on this? Why is his government unreasonably, or elements of his government or the coalition unreasonably raising people's expectation about this windfall money to give out, when we know at least in the first 4 or 5 years there will be no money to give out? Absolutely no money to give out the way they've determined it. Why is that so? It has to be for political purpose, because we went through the numbers already. I don't want to repeat the numbers about what did the other call on the resources and etc. About his Green State consultations, when would this be a practical strategy? And is it still being led by Guyana? I saw UNEP and WWF and now and CI, they're taking the lead on this Green State business. I know one thing, the LCDS, we determined it. We determine it. Has he farmed this out to the others? They're doing consultations across the country now. The GCOM's boundaries issue, I hope you'd raise that too. The Gaisuko severance issue, the Larry Singh contract. I would to raise that. I hope that you would also raise the issue about the illegality of the president, the cabinet's action in relation to the Patterson fiasco. So Patterson bypassed our procurement laws. He took an unsolicited bid to the cabinet, and the cabinet exceeded its authority by approving that bid because it has no powers of approval by law. It only has powers of no objection. And why did the president not send it back to come through the tender board? And ask, why did he not ask, or the cabinet ask about why did this come directly from a minister when it's the only way it should go to the cabinet is through the tender board, the MPTAP. So President Granger needs to answer a bit more about that. Will he answer about the 1.4 billion spent on the Durban Park issue? Up to now, most of the documents have disappeared, literally disappeared. The documents have disappeared. So I hope that he will answer to that. I hope that he will give clear answers to the blackout woes that the people in Essequibo are faced with now, because we have had 3 different answers from 3 individuals. Patterson said the engines are already in Essequibo Coast. Another person said they're on the way. Another senior official from GPL, and the third said they're doing foundation work now for the engine. And so this, but this will replicate. You think it's Essequibo now. Our turn will come in the interconnected grid. That is the integrated system here. Our turn will come. I've been warning about this for a while, that the gensets are pretty old. They've dispensed with their Wärtsilä management contract, and they have not brought in new generating capacity into the interconnected system since we left office. When the hydropower should have brought in 160 megawatts of power into the interconnected system to allow us to cater for growth and leave some reserve. They have not done none of that. This sets here, we are running very, very tight. So any major problem or even minor problem will result in the same situation you have on the Essequibo Coast, here in the interconnected area, West Coast, parts of West Coast, East Coast, and the Berbice area. And so what are his plans for that? Well, as the president seen the balance of payment, the massive deterioration in the balance of payment, I hope that he can give some answers to that, how he's going to turn this around. How is he going to turn around that situation? Because it's going to collapse. What does he have to say tomorrow at the press conference about the huge overdraft that they've run up at the central bank? I hope he answers that. What are his plans to temper cost of living? We've seen an increase in the water rates, now transportation. They've increased taxes on a whole range of foodstuff. What are his plans for jobs? There are none, absolutely none. We keep losing jobs. I saw the latest permutation was Guyana Goldfields. We're losing jobs. The crime, this is it. So I'm hoping, and then maybe, what does his prime minister do outside of travel? That could be a question for him. That's the final one. So I'm hoping that you'll get answers to these questions tomorrow. when you attend his press conference. We'll be watching carefully. It's a national event. I've invited some people over, some friends over by me, and it's heavily televised. I'm trying to put up some special feeds and stuff so we can sit around and watch this press conference. It's a major event in our lives. So yeah, okay. Yeah, we cook up. Here, and watch it. So I see the usual stuff from the DPI. The DPI in its PR job said, listen, yesterday I think it was, listen to what they said, that the government increased the number and range of items that are exempted from VAT. Do they understand what they're saying? They should fire this guy over there for incompetence. The items were zero rated. They were zero rated. Zero rated means that the people could have claimed back input VAT on those zero rated items. So they didn't have to pass it on to the final price because they can claim it. When you move it by law, a category from zero rated to exempt, it means that the suppliers can no longer reclaim input VAT. So they're obligated to pass it on to the consumers. So when they hear the word exempt, they think to exempt you from taxes. It was zero. Exempt means no longer be able to collect back or get a refund on input VAT. They're treating this as favorable. This was shafting people here, adding tax on VAT on 46 food items that were zero rated are now exempt. So this is not taking off the taxes. This is putting on the taxes on those items, and they market this as an achievement of the government. This is the DPI. Unbelievable incompetence. Unbelievable incompetence. Over there. I don't know who is looking at this sort of thing. And listen, implemented housing solutions that target low and middle income households, including young professionals. Really? Where is this happening? I don't want to go through the DPI fiction, the fable here. You know, every time I read this stuff from there, I just wonder that these people spend $500 million of our money for doing nothing. Just $500 million for wasting people's time, becoming a proper propaganda arm of the APNU and the AFC. So those were just some of the issues that I wanted to deal with at this press conference. I hope that when we leave here, nobody is going to say I propose that we deport Venezuelans, because I never said that. And it did a disservice to many people, because I've been in the forefront, not this government, fighting for more humane treatment of Venezuelans. So the last time I saw a report from Newsroom that said I suggested that they be deported. That's the last thing. Let me repeat once again. I made it clear that for Guyanese returning, even without documents, they must at the border be welcomed with open arms and helped to reintegrate into Ghana. The Amerindians, I said, who have from time immemorial traveled across our borders, they too, because they move seamlessly, they paddle across, they move, they too have to be helped and embraced warmly. We have to find a policy. I urge President Granger to help our regional chairman in 1 and 9 get some more resources to help people who are coming across from the border. And then I made it clear. So I said those were the two categories, and the third category or was the Venezuelans who are fleeing Venezuela, the refugees. And I made it clear that they must be treated in a dignified way. They must experience the generosity of our people and country. That means treated well, properly sheltered. We have to get them food and everything else. And I said, at some point in time, in the future, to be repatriated, not deported. Not deported. It connotates that we will just pick people up. In fact, I was very upset about what happened in Letem, and I spoke out against it publicly, that some people came across the border. Our vice chairman, Carl Harman, and he said the people came across the border. And Harman said to him, let them get some help. And they helped them at the region. And then next day, the police came, pick up their family with their children and deposited them back at the border. And I spoke out against this. That's deportation. So and then the same news report had how the government has such a great humanitarian policy. The thing that we've been pushing them to, I said, don't approach this only from a security perspective. There's a humanitarian element. We have to do this. It's our responsibility. We've been in the forefront pushing for this, for humane treatment of people. Then it got turned around on that story. And so I hope, the reason why I'm reacting to this, because I don't want ever for people to say that the PPP's position is that we wanted people who were seeking shelter and food to be deported from this country. Even with the Haitians who have come here, I've made it clear that people who come legally, they should be welcome once they come to our authority. We had an issue about people being treated, and until now, that they're smuggled through our country. It's people trafficking. The only way you can justify that, the government says it doesn't know how the people leave. Is that not a concern? If 25,000 people can leave your country without you knowing, how many more will come in without you knowing? They should know. And that is the problem. Not that the Haitians can't come to Ghana. We are a CARICOM country. We champion free movement of people. We championed it. Our party's position has always been, from time immemorial, for a position that has international solidarity. And our people have gone around this world, including in Venezuela, to look for a better living at some point in time. And we can't want, when it's our turn to go abroad, for people to treat our people with dignity, which we fight for all the time, across the Caribbean, in Barbados, and so many other places, the big disputes we've had. And then when they come here, not treat them well. This is very important to us in the PPP. And that's why we've been championing it. So I was aghast that a report like that could emanate from something that I spoke about at the press conference, where the word deportation would be attached to our policy.
Questions? Going to praise yourself.
Yes.
Given all that you know about Mr. Leslie James, on the year tenure, he would have served as crime chief. He would have been acting police commissioner as well as a commander. Given all that you know about him, are you satisfied that he was the best pick? And secondly, how do you feel about the exclusion of Mr. Ryan, given the fact that he was the acting commissioner of police for quite some time and he is considered to be the most senior rank as of now?
Well, I sought to find out more about the process. And that is why I asked the president for the Combs report. I said we would like to have an overview about the thinking in the sector, about the reforms, because the PPP wants to buy into these reforms, contribute to them, because we're likely to inherit them. And so we wanted that. I wanted assurance from the president or an explanation about the process that he went through to select the candidate. He explained the process. He said they had an interviewing panel that he chaired along with 2 ministers. He mentioned that a basic assessment was done through that kind of testing. He spoke about the Police Service Commission, and because I sought to get answers whether Slow's report could have influenced the outcome, and he said Slow recused himself. So, and then I asked specifically about Ram Narayan, given the same point you were making, that he's been there for a while and been acting. And he said there are specific reasons why he was not selected, and he did not say why. So I raised all of the issues. As it relates to the person who will be the new commissioner of police, I've heard nothing adverse about him. So far. It's only this morning I've had the name, and so I went to the meeting. But so far I've heard nothing adverse about him. Personally, I don't have anything adverse against him.
Going back to Ram Narayan, you did say that the president would have raised things, but I'm seeking your opinion given the circumstances right now.
I don't know enough about. I can't feel a particular way. I don't know enough about the criteria on Ram Narayan. I think he had expectations.
Yes, but would you at least expect you have a senior person who's more senior, at least to be?
I don't know what the president knows that I don't know. You can find out tomorrow. Yeah, he might know something, and I don't want to say, you know.
And thirdly, my last question. Now that the issue of the police commissioner has been settled, we still have the judicial nominees on the table. Are you expecting that this matter will be addressed shortly, or was that discussed at your meeting?
No, that was not discussed, and I don't know in what time frame the president will seek to address this matter.
Hopeful that it will be shortly?
I'm hopeful about a lot of things. I'm hopeful about the answers tomorrow that you'll get for a press conference. I'm hopeful that you will get enough time to ask questions. I'm hopeful about that you'll get enough time to press conference. I saw have some enhanced security protocols for the meeting too.
You know a lot, sir.
I see enhanced security protocols.
In the interest of time.
Yes, go ahead.
Accept short answers.
Yeah, sure. Short answers.
So, what was the president's reaction to your auction suggestion? And did he seek to defend the issuing of concessions to Mid-Atlantic? That's one. Two, Exxon's 9th discovery was announced this morning. About 2 or 3 discoveries ago, Christopher Ram, attorney at law and Archer London, had said that this is no reason for gangs to celebrate, because the more oil they find, is the more we're being ripped off. What are your views on that in light of this find? The last time I asked you about the Belt and Road Initiative, you said that you don't know enough to comment. Did you seek any perspective about this when you met with the president? And you only met with the president today, yet you gave us a list of questions to ask him. Did you get an opportunity to voice these concerns?
No, I'm like an interloper. So I go to the meeting there to deal with this constitutional matter. So what I do, I stitch in a couple of my big concerns. I don't have like the whole day to raise. I can get like 3 days, and then I can fill those 3 days with concerns I have about this government. Fill them and also propose solutions. That's what they don't do. They just they acknowledge sometimes the problem, but without any solution. For each one of these areas, I can say exactly where our position is. I can tell you where, as I said before, we can take this budget and cut $30 billion from it, the existing budget, without harming a lot of our objectives. So yes, on those issues, I did raise the concern about the framework, that in the absence of him defining a framework on oil and gas for future negotiations, that we are very disappointed that they went ahead and approved the concessions in Parliament. And he said that they're strengthening now. He looked to the future. And I pointed this out too, that you're correct that the ninth fine today will all be processed through the same old contract, the one that we negotiated. And so we really,
So you say something?
it's something like it trips me off when I think about how much we're losing, but it really trips me a bit. But the thing is that so no clear position. The president said we're seeking to strengthen the sector now, etc. Moving forward. So nothing about, no specific answers to my specific questions. I hope you have better luck. I did not raise the Belt and Road Initiative with him. You know my position on China and the developing world and the newly emerging economies of the world. I believe we have to create huge partnerships with them. And I know they do provide development financing, often financing that you don't get from other countries. So we have to make sure that we use the money to our advantage. Now, I saw the airport project and that criticism of the airport project, and I can defend it, but I don't know what it will turn out to be now. I got a note from somebody to say, you will cry when you see how they have adjusted the project downwards, the one that we had. And so we're waiting until it's completed, because we'll have the original bills of quantity and what we're supposed to get from the 150 million project and what we're going to get now. And I'm very concerned. But we looked at it. It's a project into 50 years into the future. We were building for 50 years into the future. It could have paid back for itself within becoming the hub. I explained that the last time about how we wanted transatlantic flights to come here with a longer runway and becoming a hub for the Caribbean, lowering the cost of freight for perishables, increasing people flow to Guyana, reducing the cost of airline travel, and then with probably a $5 per person, maybe $10 per person, like airport construction fee. If you go to Miami, you pay that sort of thing. That could pay back for the whole the airport. Just adding that to maybe the cost of travel, say $5 to $10 US dollars more, could pay back the project along with the revenue that you earn. But it would be a big boost for the country. Now, if we had to borrow commercially to build that, we would have ended up paying probably $160 million more, because the difference between a 2% interest and 10% interest, that's for US dollar denominated loans, is massive. And so that is what, when we look at all the numbers, it was a great project for us. We looked at the numbers. And so this is what I expect. If China doesn't want to waste its money, China doesn't have money to throw away, it's up to us to work with China to get value and to use their resources. If they were going to make $500 million available in loan to a developer for their Myla hydropower project, who do you think would have benefited? We would have benefited from power cost that is half of the generating cost at that time in '92 when prices were high. By now we would have all had reliable power, hydropower, more power in the system, and at a cheaper rate. And China would have been repaid its money too.
Just one thing I want to get clear. You said that when you spoke to the president about auctioning the remaining blocks and asking why they went ahead with the concession, his response was that they're in strengthening phase.
Yeah, well, I asked whether we're gonna auction the future blocks, and I said why I believe that we should. So I didn't get a clear answer, and but he spoke about what they are doing now, that they have just hired somebody to strengthen the department.
Can I have a follow-up?
Yeah, sure.
So he didn't answer the question, if we're going to tender? He didn't say yes or no?
No, didn't. That's why I asked you to see if you could get that.
This is why I'm asking,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, you come with a long list of questions you hope the press could ask and you could get clarity on. When you're there with the president, can't you ask for a meeting or a talk and to discuss? Tell him you have this long list of queries and you need clarity.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to get that sometime later in the year. Okay, but in the meantime, I'm hoping that how you can get answers to. Is that not what you want?
You want to?
Yes, we all want. We all want the question. The whole country. The whole country. The whole country wants these answers to this.
Like that, and I was preparing to come here.
Yeah.
In light of what we expected tomorrow, I was wondering if it wouldn't be good for Guyana's democracy for you and the president to have a joint press conference. I thought
You're a religious guy. You are a religious guy. You deal in the business of hope. Hope of a better future, hope. And so you're right.
Would you go on record to say if you would request something like that?
No, I would not request that because I don't want to go to a press conference where I'm disagreeing with the president all the time. You know, we end up in a massive fighting match at the press conference because I have different perspectives on different issues. So what I'm hoping is that he will give his perspective, that at least we understand what's driving all of these things. The thinking behind so many areas that we don't understand. The country this has no thought to it, some of the policies. They're so patently wrong, devastating to our economy, to our lives, to our people, that what thought process is driving this. That is what I'm hoping that you will be able to delve into tomorrow and get some answers as to the thought process. Then we can share our views. But right now we're shooting in the dark.
Okay. As it relates to the teachers, you spoke of that, the agreement that came to the end of 2015 in regards to your government or your party's approach to the teachers. But the teachers were complaining that what you guys had offered them was arbitrary on your part, that you did not offer that. That was not part of a collective bargaining system. And so...
Wendell, let me stop you there. You got it wrong. We had a multi-year agreement which we negotiated. So how could it be arbitrary? It's defined in the multi-year agreement. It says every year you shall get this sum. And everybody sign on. It covers 5 years. We had 2 5-year agreement. So you got that one little wrong. Let's move on. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I
All right. Let's move on.
I will double check that.
All right.
What's your take on the situation with Minister Jennifer Welch, former minister? Now bear in mind that the talk is that it would be appealed, that the case would be appealed.
And
I remember that when she was first charged, that you were saying let the legal thing run its course. That was your initial take.
And that was my course, and that it ran its course, and the magistrate declared two things. Everyone has been focusing on the first, that the charge is bad in law. But what the magistrate from news reports that I read said also, that the evidence did not support the charges because of the witnesses that they brought. Almost all the witnesses said they don't remember whether the training activities took place in the region. And one of them actually said, yes, there was training in the region. And the money was supposed to be used for training and other activities in the region. So they stopped focusing on what the magistrate said Not just that the charges were bad in law, but the witnesses did not support the charges, their testimony. And how come we're missing that part? How come we're missing that part? And then to have a person like Sharma, he's pushing this. I don't know, he doesn't push this like, I think they got a little sexist thing too going on. Because I saw now with Gail Teixeira, you have an assault on her and Jenny Westford. As though I've never seen Sharma talk this much about corruption individually when he just makes these general statements. What does he have to say about Patterson? What does he have to say about the 5 other ministers there that the DPP withdrew? Was that bad too? That the DPP withdrew null pros those cases that were going to be charged for private criminal charges. He himself violated the law by awarding these operational kind of audits without any tender. We spent, as soon as they came into office, Sharma, he's the last one to talk about reopening charges. And it's a politician saying this. The politician. Why don't they allow the technical agencies to assess whether there is really a case to be made and do that? Imagine a politician advocating this. So I'm telling you, that's what I think about it. It ran its course. I said, let it go through its course. It ran its course. She was acquitted.
I know a lot of things you speak so fast. Anyhow, I spoke to Mr. Jaipal Sharma, and he was saying to me that he's only commenting on the issue because a judgment has been made, and he's talking as a citizen. He's not speaking particularly as a politician.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
That is his take.
Yeah.
Now,
well, as a citizen, they should lock up Jaipal Sharma. Right, yeah. As a citizen, not as leader of the opposition.
If you're saying
for stupidity,
if you're saying that the case has run its course, hold on. If you're saying the case has run its course, and it is now completed, then he can speak on a completed case without it being a conflict of interest. Only if the case is alive and well can he not speak.
No, that you're talking about the sub judice principle. That you don't speak about this when the matter is in the court. Correct. I'm talking about the influence peddling. When a minister puts this sort of pressure, any minister of the government calls for a case to be reopened, they're politicians, then they're influencing the technical agencies. Let the technical guys decide whether they need to reopen the case. Not, he's advocating for opening the case, reopening the case. Why? I've never seen him advocate for locking up all the people who they gave $170 million to their friends in Sussex Street.
Okay.
This same Sharma. So why is it just on these women? Yes, all right.
On your right hand side, sir.
Okay, all right, yeah.
In relation to Mr. James, will the DPP be supporting Mr. James in the position that President wants him as commissioner?
Any commissioner of police will have our full support. We have to support our law enforcement agencies. We've been in the forefront of pushing for them. I raised this issue about even restoring their 1 month salary, tax-free salary that they'd get. I'm a strong supporter of our law enforcement agencies. I'm a strong supporter. In fact, many times I've been hammered by some people for saying, when I was president, for saying I've supported them too much. But I'm a strong supporter. They stand between us and criminals and chaos. And therefore, we all have a duty, whether you agree with the process or not, to support the law enforcement agencies. And if he's going to be the commissioner of police, well, he has to enjoy the trust of the whole country until he proves that he can't enjoy that trust. But right now, we have to give him a fair chance to work.
In addition to the airport, you raised the 150 million. People are saying it's not money could have been spent better. But I want an assessment from you. Are you saying that if the project fails, no, that it will be the government's fault and not the PPP for starting this project?
The project can't fail. What will happen is it's severely downgraded. We will not get the value for money. That is what I'm concerned about. You remember, when we were there, they were saying about we inflated the cost. Now they have said basically we underestimated the cost. That is what they're saying. So they are adjusting. Rather than paying more, they have adjusted some of the features of the airport that would have made it this building for 50 years, the hub, a world-class facility. And so we don't have to return to it. That is what I'm worried about, the compromising of the quality of the airport. And so it will not fail. We'll have another runway, a longer runway. We'll have a bigger apron to hopefully accommodate 8 aircraft standing. They've come back to the budget for the money to put the bridges. Enough space to process lots of people coming in, nice accommodation, a good, comfortable, modern airport, enhanced security, etc. We need that. We have to think big. We have to think big too for the future.
And lastly, in relation to the GCOM matter, for all intents and purposes, GCOM has already decided on the demarcation of the constituencies. You mentioned possibility of legal recourse, but then what else? I mean, would you go into the local government elections?
No, we are going in because we are going in at a disadvantage, but we are going into local government election. We're contesting, don't trust me, but that doesn't mean that our voices are muzzled or we are muzzled. We have to speak, fight for the rights, not of the PPP, but of the citizens in those areas. We're fighting for people on the ground to be heard and no imposition by GCOM. So we're running on parallel tracks. Whilst we're challenging this, and most likely we will challenge it legally, we are also preparing for local government elections.
Just follow up on one of the questions I asked, just quickly. If you're saying, and I haven't seen the report, where you said the magistrate said that some of the witnesses...
I read the newspaper report, an account.
Okay.
All right? Thank you.